So, and boundary setting is about building your own personal and emotional space to improve self-esteem, build relationships with others and with self. And in having healthy boundaries, we ultimately conserve our emotional energies. Okay, so think about it in this way. How much of your energy do you waste worrying about what other people think? Worrying about some potential situation that can be conflict or, well, anything, because everything that is fear, worry, a negative emotion takes up a lot more energy than having a relaxed approach to something. But in getting that relaxed approach, you need to obviously have structure, know yourself, trust your gut feel, know where, like that first little quote says, where you end and where somebody else begins. Okay. Then it further goes to say healthy boundaries gives us a space to grow and be vulnerable. Being vulnerable means that you are open, honest, and transparent in a relationship. And by being that, you welcome the other party to also share when they need to. It's okay to be vulnerable. Vulnerability is a boundary in its own. Okay, so vulnerability doesn't mean that you have to be seen as weak. Okay, and I'm saying when you look at yourself in the mirror, what does vulnerability mean to you? For me, as a person, I don't like crying in front of other people. However, if I feel safe in that space, I will cry. That's me being vulnerable. But what does it mean to you? When do you see yourself as being vulnerable? And who do you allow in your space to see that vulnerability? Then practicing self-awareness and trusting your gut, that's exactly what I said just now, is needed to calibrate where we have healthy boundaries and where we are allowing some dysfunction or even disconnectedness in our lives. Okay, so this for me is disconnectedness, and I'll share a little bit of my own personal experience. For years, I went through life being completely disconnected. And I'm not saying disconnected to others, but disconnected to who I really am and what I really feel. And also in that comes a sense of what I feel and who I am doesn't really matter. So the minute you start connecting to self and connecting to who you are as in the core of your being, that allows you to then start connecting to things, to others, to relationships, to every single aspect in your life on a completely new level. And that creates a space of freedom, joy, all the beautiful things that you can have is at reach. Being disconnected actually steals that beautiful aspect of who you are away from you. Okay. Now, in the next slide, I've actually given a couple of examples of the different types of boundaries that we get, and there are many. I mean, these are just a few of the bigger ones. Okay, so personal, for instance, I'm comfortable with kissing and holding hands, but not in public. So that's a personal boundary. Okay. Then the next one, emotional boundaries, refers to a person's feelings. As how do you feel when you're in a certain space or in somebody else's space? It involves separating your feelings from others, limitations on when to share and when not to share personal information. And an example of that is the violation of a boundary is when one's feeling criticized or invalid. So if you're looking at your life, we're going to get to an exercise just now where you can then actually really sit and see where in your life are you feeling criticized or invalid. And I think that's quite a common thing if you look at society at the moment. I mean, the stresses of the days are so hectic and the demands on us is so high that it's easy to fall prey to this this particular emotional aspect of boundaries is if they criticize you for whatever reason, what does that say about you as a person? And I don't know if anybody else can relate to me, but I like doing the mirror work. It's about other people reflecting back at you of some area where you need to develop, or an area where you know it's like a little scab that you know that you have not addressed in any way or healed. Okay, so being criticized is actually about them if you have your boundaries in place. Being invalidated is about the person or the other party in the situation that actually what it causes you to feel that way. So it should be about them. If your self-criticism is a positive one, and wherever you validate yourself, this won't be at all an issue, and you'll automatically feel that this is not about me, it's about them. Okay. Then the next one is your mental or intellectual boundary. This refers to your thoughts and ideas. Healthy mental boundaries include respect and an awareness of appropriate discussions. Okay, so this is pretty simple in the example that I use, but we can go further with this one. And we can say, okay, so what are my thoughts? How do I think? Do I often criticize your self-talk? Do I criticize or judge others? So this is all part of mental and intellectual boundaries, because at the end of the day, it's your thought, and the thought actually gets absorbed into your subconscious mind, and it actually eventually forms who you are because it gets embedded. And that in your subconscious mind is obviously something that is deeper than just that thought. Okay, so I know that you know, when you think about the way that the subconscious mind works, but there's always an underlying factor about any thoughts that you have. It's an imprint, it's a belief, it could be anything, it could be a plethora of different things throughout your life that caused you to have negative self-talk, feeling once again invalidated, those kind of things. Okay, so the next one is material. I mean, that's quite a simple one, is your money and your possessions. Is who do you allow to share with? Who is allowed to come into that space of your life? Okay. Then physical. Okay, your physical space. I mean, there, I think everybody is familiar. Standing in a queue before COVID, and somebody is a bit too close to you, and you automatically, your back starts coming up, and you think, oh, get out of my bubble. So that is your physical personal space. Okay, so healthy physical boundaries include an awareness of what's appropriate and what's not appropriate in various settings and types of relationships, like your hugs, your handshaking, your kissing, those kind of things. Okay, and then the last example that I've got here is your spiritual boundaries. So it's honoring and valuing your own beliefs and not buying into other people's opinions. So I think when a person's spiritual boundaries are of such, it's healthy. You wouldn't judge other people's spiritual beliefs, and they won't judge yours, because in knowing your core values, what your beliefs are, and living them, other people would obviously see them, and they would respect that, in a sense of reciprocating that belief. Okay. Cool. So, okay, so but why do I set boundaries? Okay, so firstly, it's good emotional and mental health. Okay, so I mean, that says it all. So for me, if you've got healthy boundaries, you're a happier person. I mean, that for me is just, okay, look, it sounds easier said than done, but It's a fact. That is the reaction to an healthy boundary is having good emotional and mental health. Okay, it influences the behavior of others and develops your own identity. So it develops a sense of autonomy. What this means is what I earlier said is, if you live and you walk your talk and your core beliefs and your core values, it definitely influences the behaviors of others, because they will not overstep that boundary and act out of character. And if they do, you will be aware of it enough to be able to address it in the moment, coming from a place of love. Okay, so then place of love, once again, self-care. It improves self-confidence, and it's a healthy concept of who you are. So it's like when you're walking into a room and your boundaries are in place, your whole energy would be completely different, because there's that self-confidence when you're walking into a room that's this is me and I'm proud of who I am, and people will see that and they'll respect it. Okay. Then better communication with others and more fulfilling relationships. I mean, we're going back to a previous slide where it's by being honest, transparent. If you communicate with that on the forefront, coming from a place of love and honor, that communication is definitely just going to go from strength to strength. And then having more stability and control over your lives. I mean, setting boundaries is once again a personal journey. You are in control of it. If it's rigid and it's not suitable, you are in control to adjust or tweak it to actually suit that specific situation. Or if it's too flexible, you will, if you're self-aware enough, you'll pick it up and you'll be able to say, whoa, I need to improve that boundary by doing X, Y, Z. Okay. Okay, so some advantages of healthy boundaries. Boundaries are important as they limit your exposure to behavior that doesn't align with who you are and who you aspire to be. Okay, so I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot in a lot of the slides, but the things that I'm repeating is so critical, and I'm hoping that the penny drops with some people that has got these questions around the why and the how. Okay, so it's behavior is normally the first thing that people see, the first thing that makes them believe that you are either out of character or not. I walk into a room and it's the first impression is by my behavior. It's got nothing to do with who I am, because my behavior doesn't always define who I am, but that's what they see. So in setting your boundaries and living in accordance to who you want to be, and it's aligned with who you are, that first impression will be aligned with that, and their behavior will be aligned with yours. Setting boundaries sets you up for success in all areas of your life. Just to give you an idea, to use an example in the corporate world, having a team report to you, they can overstep that boundary if you allow them to, and believe me, they will take that chance. So you have different structures and different set times for smoke breaks, for instance, and somebody comes to you and say, please, can I pop out for a smoke? I'm desperate for one. I was in a meeting, and they go out. I'm using a simple example. Next time they do it again, and eventually they don't come and ask, because why? That boundary of yours was too flexible and it's taken advantage of. So this is now setting yourself up for failure in a knowing, giving the team some guidelines as to what they are allowed to do and what not. So that's just a simple example of setting yourself up for success versus failure. Although boundaries are unique, yours. It allows others to identify your core values, and it determines what you are not willing to compromise. So give an example of a conflict situation. If your boundaries are in place, person won't step into that conflict relationship or conflict situation with knowing they can bully you into getting what they want. They know what you're willing to compromise and what you're not willing to compromise. So it's just having this relationship, which is normally 100% a two-way stream, to you setting that relationship up for having the love, the honor, the respect being mutual. You don't need to feel bad about setting boundaries, not participating in things that does not align with the life you want to live. Learn to say no without explaining. Now, guys, this is the most difficult one that I've ever tried. I keep on practicing it and I keep on having to explain myself. I honestly have to say no more than you guys can think, okay? But I still land up either playing into it and saying yes, or explaining, giving this whole story that comes from my head as to why I'm saying no. If you can say no in such a way that you don't have to explain why you're saying no and the other person understands it, then your boundaries are firmly in place. Okay, and that's quite a nice sign as to where they are not in place. A person is so used to wanting an explanation for every single aspect of your life. The minute you say no to something, they want the same thing. Excuse me. So ultimately, I challenge you guys to practice this one. Okay, it's not easy, but saying no is in the way you're saying that no. If it is in your tone of your voice, coming from a place of love, and them knowing that the no is for a specific reason. It's not because you are being funny or disrespectful or you invalidating their idea. Believe me, it will work. In the beginning, if you say no, you might have to sort of gently put that person in their place if they want to say, but why are you saying no? I need an explanation. Then it depends in the situation. If it's something that's hugely technical, like I'm very technologically challenged, but if it's hugely technical, then maybe it validates an explanation. But it's something, it's straightforward, a yes or a no, and you say no, then there's no reason to explain. And you actually tell that person in a very loving way that this situation validates a yes or a no, and it speaks for itself. So therefore, my opinion and my answer is no, and I would love you to respect it. So, that's a biggie for me. Boundaries are not about placing limits on others. It's about creating a space that honors who you are. So once again, this balance, it's all about balance. Okay, it's about do I need to be gentle, or do I need to be a little bit more firm? But in doing that, you're not placing the limits on others, and it's about understanding that for self, so that in your body language and in your mannerism of giving that over to that person, that they understand it in the same way. Okay, and then boundaries also it's a form of self-love and nurturing. Okay, so once again, if you love yourself, you honor yourself, and you're kind enough to yourself to set that boundary in such a way that one are coming from a place of love, honor, and respect, self-nurturing is automatic, because you will allow yourself time, you will allow yourself the space to be who you want to be. Your goals and your aspirations become more of a set in stone kind of thing, because you know as a person what you want in your life, and you are getting there by setting your boundaries and going towards that goal. I know it doesn't maybe form part of this, but it just sort of crossed my mind when I was reading this one about saying no. We did a course some time ago called Crucial Conversations. If you ever want to do yourself a favor, it's all about conflict management and also how do you handle different situations that can potentially create conflict. It's really about how you perceive things in your mind going into a conversation. Now, for me, the boundaries work on a very similar concept. It's about having thoughts in your head and perceiving certain things as a certain way because of the reaction or the what do you call it, the situation playing out in a certain way. So Crucial Conversations, guys, I advocate that. I'm hoping they're going to pay me some royalties, but that is really a nice thing to do, and you'll gift yourself with such a beautiful thing, because that's one of the courses that stood out for me, and I use it every single day in the corporate world because conflict is big in corporate. Okay, so now comes the big question. How do I know that I need boundaries? Okay, so firstly, it goes against personal values or rights in order to please others. So you know what your values are, and if you don't, I think it's time that you start looking at, what are my values? What are my beliefs? Who am I? What is me? Okay, and then you look at situations where those values are being not honored or not, you can feel it, it doesn't feel right for you. Then giving as much as you can for the sake of giving, as well as taking as much as you can for the sake of others. So there comes that little secret, oh, what can I get from this situation? Okay. Believe me, there's more people thinking like that. So if I do this, what do I get? Okay, it shouldn't be even a question if you've got healthy boundaries and the relationship, that whether it being a work, a personal, a family, that shouldn't even be a question. Okay, so there you know, if that is the case, a boundary is required. And then letting others define you. Okay, that's, I suppose that's a talk on its own, because that is, I think that happens a lot more than what we know, and it's also subtle, because where in your life do you allow other people to define who you actually are? But then again, do you know who you are? Question mark. Expecting others to fulfill needs automatically, not taking ownership or communicating your needs. Okay, so you in a relationship with a partner, and how often do we just expect them to just fulfill our needs automatically without communicating to them what you want? Okay, so that, I think, is also one of the biggest downfalls in his relationship, whether it's a romantic, a friendship, a work relationship. If you are not clear, transparent, honest, and open about what your needs are, and it's not being selfish, it's just being open, that you can never expect somebody else just to know what is required. Okay. Not speaking up when treated poorly. Now, here again, I'm going to go back to crucial conversations. This is the perfect scenario for a crucial conversation. It's about, I believe that, or I see, or I hear that you did X, Y, and Z. So I'm starting to think that whatever you're thinking. So I would like to know, how do you feel about it? So open-ended question, not an argument. It's in a beautiful framework, and that person has to think about their behavior and actually answer back to you. Okay, so then playing victory, secondary gain. I mean, guys, how many victim. How many of us play victim just to get the attention? How many of us have an ulterior motive when they want certain things? I mean, knowing and identifying those situations, you have to be so honest with yourself and not hide behind the victim that's within all of us. Okay, so falling apart so someone else can take care of you. That's a big one. The need to always have attention in order to feel validated. But all of those things means it's big red flags for I need to work on myself, because why am I not validating myself enough? Why am I not empowering myself to be standing in my own power in any situation? So those, I mean, can go back to past experiences, to childhood traumas. It can be anything and everything that you think of. And it can be a compounded thing that you have had you were bullied as a child, and that bullying has been sort of in your life right through up to adulthood. And that's basically being the victim. The secondary gain of that is somebody else is actually taking care of you, so you don't have to take ownership for whatever is happening in your life. Falling in love with someone that you barely know, or somebody just reaches out to you and suddenly, oh, you know, I'm seeing little hearts and I'm beautiful because that person has now paid attention to me. That's also one of the big signs. Accepting advances. Where in your life are you allowing touching, hugging, and you know it makes you feel uncomfortable, but you're taking it because that boundary is not in place, and what will they think about me if I say, sorry, that I don't feel comfortable with you touching me or hugging me? So those are also, you know, it's a question of how does it make you feel when you are in certain situations, or about a certain relationship. Does it give you that fuzzy feeling, or does it make you feel uneasy? I think most of the times setting boundaries is about feeling. If there's a negative feeling attached to that specific situation, it is not, I can guarantee you, it's not a healthy boundary, or there's no boundary whatsoever. So I'm going to do a little exercise with you guys just now, whereby we'll take one specific incident, and each one will do obviously their own little one. It will be a couple of seconds, minutes, whatever. And then I'd like you guys to then practice this, and maybe afterwards we can have feedback for those who are comfortable with sharing how they felt when they actually connected to that. Okay, so yeah, I've got a little beginner's guide for knowing when to set boundaries. You feel taken advantage of, or untrusting. Your space or privacy is being interrupted. You feel uncomfortable or angry with something someone did. You're being blamed for something you're not responsible for doing. Come on, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that one. You feel others are pushing ideas, actions, or feelings onto you. You feel disrespected, insulted, or hurt. You want to share how you want to do or not want to be treated. You feel bullied, abused, or someone is being aggressive, or you see someone is trying to compete with you. So these are just a few little things that is actually easy to sort of connect to when you start practicing setting boundaries. And just note how many times feeling actually pop up. Now, those people who disassociate from their feeling is most probably going to find this exercise extremely difficult, because if you dissociate from your own feelings, you're not going to be able to identify where the boundaries are actually required. So how do we start setting boundaries? Okay, firstly, you need to know yourself. Knowing who you are, what you stand for, and is a very important first step, okay? And then also, what are your core values, your interests, and your goals? So that is self-explanatory, and it sort of tells you everything in its own. And this is also why setting boundaries is such a personal journey. And then also what helps is to observe others. Identify someone who you respect in your life that you feel is got healthy boundaries in place. How do they manage it? What common behaviors can you identify with? So that's quite a nice way to calibrate where you're going if you've got such a role model in your life. Okay, be intentional with your time. Are you mindful with how you spend it, or don't you really worry about it? There's a demand of the kids, there's a demand of work, there's a demand of that, and believe me, I'm guilty of that one as well. But prioritize time for yourself, because in order to have healthy boundaries, firstly, you need the time to start identifying where you need them. And eventually with practice, you'll see that you will have time to spend on yourself and just reconnect with those values, those core beliefs, those goals, whatever you choose to reconnect with. Think through what you want to accomplish by setting boundaries. So there needs to be an intention. You can't just set a boundary because it's a trend. Oh, everybody else is doing it. Where can I put a boundary? I mean, okay. You need to have an intention. What is your goal? What is your core value that you want to actually achieve by having that boundary in place? Where are you setting yourself up for success? Understand that different relationships require different boundaries by evaluating each one. Okay, so I can't set the same boundary in my corporate environment than what I have at home with my family. It's not, you cannot. It's epic fail. Okay, a person's inclined to allow more, you're more flexible with your family than what you are at work. Okay, and if you have the two mixed up, honestly, trust me, you're going to have huge problems, and you'll know it. It will be in your face immediately. Realize that it takes practice and patience, guys. Practice, fine-tune, and it's like anything that we want to achieve in life. I mean, the professionals of this life didn't get where they are by just doing it. They went through a whole process from studying, practicing, and eventually they become experts in that field. Now you need to become an expert in your own field, in your own life, by taking control and setting these healthy boundaries in your life. Speak up respectfully. Implement them, which might include asking for clarity, respectfully correcting someone, or expressing discomfort with someone's behavior. Once again, these crucial conversations. If you feel that somebody is acting out of character, don't be like a bull in a china shop and say, listen, hey, get back, don't come near me. Be gentle, be respectful, because you would not like them to do the same to you. Yes, you might not behave in the same way, but just pause for a moment and just have that other person's feelings, take that into consideration when you're in that moment. It's easier said than done, because believe me, when you're in the heat of the moment, it's normally you react, you don't respond. Okay. Then pay attention to relationship changes and hold your ground. So change is a given, guys. We've seen this now with lockdown. If anything is guaranteed, it's change. Relationships change, behaviors of people change. So you need to be aware and mindful of the relationships that you are in and the situations that you get yourself in. I'm saying getting yourself into, because you are in control of where you want to be and where you are at any given moment. And this needs to be touched base with moment by moment. Okay, it's not something that you can, I'll address it next week, because every day of your life, something will happen where a boundary is required, whether it is a boundary for self, I need time to meditate. I need time to focus on my hobbies. That is a boundary for self. Where are you so flexible with that boundary that you actually procrastinate about it? So those are the type of things that happens. Your life might change, your interest might change, your relationship will change. So just be mindful of that kind of thing in your life and just be flexible enough to adjust where it needs to be adjusted. Okay. So now up next is going to be this little exercise that I want you guys to do. But before we're going to do it, I want you guys to just take a couple of moments, and if you want to close your eyes and just think of one particular area in your life where a boundary is required, or you basically think a boundary is required, but just close your eyes and just breathe into that specific area in your life where you think boundaries are required. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes, and then if you're ready, you guys can just either put your hand up or just shout out, and when you've got it where you think you need to put that into place. Okay, are you guys ready? So just while you guys are thinking, I've got this 5-second rule with the people on Teams from work, because obviously most of the people are normally on mute, that I ask them if a question and I'll give them 5 seconds. It's normally, are you ready, yes or no? And if 5 seconds are up and I don't get a response, I assume it's yes. So can I apply that same rule to you guys? Cool. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Cool.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So now the first question, now when you've thought about that boundary that you think that you need in your life, just the question is, I struggle setting boundaries with what, where, who, any of those, okay? And that's basically what you wrote down in these first couple of minutes that I gave you to think of a boundary that you need, okay? Then as I feel most, now this is now where, when you set your boundary, is when you set the intention where you need it or in that area. Then while you're doing that, close your eyes, connect with the emotion with that situation. Imagine, visualize, pretend, step into that situation, and then connect to the emotion. If that emotion is a negative one, it just doesn't give you that fuzzy feeling, you know that you're on the right track. You need to put a boundary in place. Okay? Then, I mean, I see that we've only got a couple of minutes left. So I'm going to just take you through this process, and then you can just practice it on your own. So otherwise I would have actually made you do it now. Okay? Then once you've connected to that emotion, then you ask yourself the question, I struggle setting boundaries because why? How come? How is it that that particular situation you are struggling to set that boundary? And you write it down. Okay. Once you've written it down, there will be certain cues in that it identifies core things in the situation that is either something that is a red flag for you to work on, i.e. self-confidence, invalidating yourself, or those kind of things. But the minute you start writing it down, it will pop out. Okay. Then after you've identified with whatever those things are that you're seeing, then you start putting the actions into place. So specific actions I can do to set the boundary. It might be small in the beginning, it might be some tweaks, and you can test them. So start with something simple. I mean, if it's an everyday situation that you feel, okay, time for yourself, start small and then start putting those little boundaries in place and test them. If they are, it's still not nice, you can twig it. You can actually, you know, if you feel they're too rigid, you can actually relax them slightly. That's uniquely yours. And yeah, you can also maybe have a list of your core values and then have a reminder why you are setting the boundaries. Okay, because in setting these healthy, beautiful boundaries, the person who you are becomes so evident, and you stepping straight into your own power, and you're walking through life with confidence, not being invalidated in any other area of your life because you validate yourself enough. Okay, I'm hoping that this little outline will help you guys. And I know it's a mammoth of a task, but remember, start small, start baby steps and build onto those boundaries from there. And you'll most probably find that one boundary will run into another one, and it might not be required to set a separate boundary for certain situations. Okay, so then I'm going to just close off by this beautiful setting boundaries doesn't make me mean. I can set limits and expectations for my life and still be nice. Considering your wishes doesn't mean I have to do what you think I should do. My feelings and thoughts are part of my decision, and if you don't like it, that belongs to you. Okay, and that's my story. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Adri.
Let me just stop sharing. There we go. Awesome.
Thank
So
you,
nice. I see I've sort of spoken so much. There's literally 5 minutes left. Sorry, Candice.
No, it's fine. I was going to say, if anyone needs to go or anything like that, sure, nobody's going to be offended. If you want to stay to ask questions, I'm sure Adri won't mind.
No.
Cool. So thank you again for being here. And I'll keep you posted with the video on the WhatsApp group and on the Facebook group. If you need the links to any of those, please let me know, and I'll send it to you. All right. Any questions?
Nothing. Sure. Okay. I'm sure the questions will come when they start practicing, Candice.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, what?
Yeah. I think it's once you start stepping out your comfort zone and you start to being mindful and practicing that mindfulness, then you kind of realize, wait a minute, there's actually a lot more beneath the surface than I'm allowing myself to think of. And I think it's very important, like you say, to make some time for yourself, just to reset, just to sort of check in on yourself, because often we just exist day to day with everybody else's expectations, and we forget, wait, it's been 3 days since you've checked in with yourself, what's going on, or a month or a year. So I think it's very important to do that, and within those practices, and like we're doing every week, you'll start to recognize yourself again, you'll start to see where you need to focus on, etc.
Yeah, and also that disconnectedness, I'm finding, especially in today's life, it's easy to disconnect. It's really going into it's like you're sort of a robot, because you wake up, you do a certain thing in a certain way, and yet at the end of the day, there's no mindfulness in every single thing that you do. You're so disconnected because it's habit. I have to look after the kids. I make breakfast, I go to work, I come back, I make dinner, I go to sleep. Done.
Yeah.
So it's a program. It's about breaking that routine, and it's never comfortable, because
No.
it's comfortable having that routine, but it's uncomfortable the minute I start recognizing myself in that comfortability. So
Yes.
it's difficult, but it's doable
Yeah.
if you set the intention.
Yeah, and it's important. It's as important as your medical self, your physical self. A lot of us neglect our mental state, and I mean, I believe that it's really important. It's the 3-in-1. It's the spiritual, mental, physical.
Yeah, it's aligning all of that.
Yeah.
So
And it's very important, all 3 aspects.
Yeah. So okay, I didn't see anything in the chat.
Mm-mm.
So, but guys, honestly, I know I'm harping on that, but this crucial conversations actually changed my life in the corporate world. It really did. So, and you can actually utilize it in any way, in form, in any relationship.
Post a link or something like that onto?
I'll find, because I've got an email from a lady who actually offered it. I don't know what the cost is, because we actually got that from work. But I would recommend investing in that. It's really stunning, and I'm sure there'll be a lot to read on it. But I'll send the email, or I'll just the email, the person you can email. Actually, you know what? I'll email her and I'll ask her for a link, so maybe she can send a link. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
Somebody's
Lorata.
posting Lorata.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so now there's nothing. Don't know. Maybe she changed her mind and went backspace.
Oh, sorry.
There we are. Hello, Lorata.
Thank you so much. Adri, I was just saying thank you so much for the nuggets shared. Really some thought-provoking, and yes, definitely we'll have a conversation with you again a month later.
Perfect. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, Lorata. Well, it's a constant practice, guys. So the thing is, it doesn't just end. Yeah, as life progresses, new boundaries come up, and as you start practicing them, and every person, whether you set healthy boundaries or not, there'll always be something in your life changing where you need or require more. And for me, I'm just going to be completely honest, is at work. I mean, corporate life is hell at this stage, because they bleed you. They basically expect you. And it's saying no is much more difficult. I'm not saying it's less difficult in other situations, but you see that every day when you're actually working in the corporate field. So I can really relate to other people when they say saying no is very difficult. It's not an easy thing to do. So is there anybody else?
Audrey, can we get your presentation?
I'm sure Candice will post it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll send the video, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
With the greatest of pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I found a spelling mistake on it. Okay, so just excuse it. I finished my presentation, but there was one spelling mistake on it.
I just wanted to add something, if I may. I think we, when we think of boundary setting, we often have a misconception that it is that we have to set boundaries with other people, and I think that boundary setting starts with yourself first and foremost, because it's so important to know the reasons why we do certain things. Like, for instance, one of the things that I struggle with in terms of setting boundaries with myself is I tend to take the lead in groups, etc., and I always find myself there and then down the line I feel upset and feel like, why must I always do this, etc., etc. But there's a need within me for recognition, etc., etc. And, you know, so automatically it's something that drives me. And I need to understand that within myself and set a boundary with myself first and foremost, you know, before I'm going to be able to put it out there to someone else.
So just tell me something, when you do the behavior that you feel is not aligned with what you want, do you recognize that behavior afterwards, or do you recognize it before or during, for that matter?
Probably all of the above. Okay.
It's about being aware in that moment whether, you know, the thing is, if you sort of step into that situation and you embark on that journey that you are so aware of that you are doing to basically enforce that recognition, it's about stop, adjust, move. So stop in that moment, take a deep breath, acknowledge that behavior and honor it, because it's there for a reason. It's there because you've experienced some stuff that brings it up for you. It's sort of holding a mirror up for you. And then choose, how can I shift it in that moment? It's a brief second of just assessing the situation. So, and that is creating a boundary in its own. You know, it's just taking a step back. So I start, you know, it's like me starting a conversation and I'm stepping straight into somebody else's conversation. What do? Halfway through my sentence, I stop. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to be rude. In saying that, I'm breathing and I'm taking a step back. Okay. I honor that I've acknowledged the fact I'm taking my power back, that I was being rude by falling somebody else, sort of being disrespectful to somebody else. And then I choose to change the behavior. But that can all happen in a split second. So you being so self-aware of what you're doing, it's just to now just be a bit more aware when you're stepping in it, to acknowledge it in that moment. Stop, adjust, move. Take a breath, honor that, and shift it. And the more you practice that, the more it will change.
And also, you know, having to work on my need for recognition and wanting to be seen and stuff like that. So,
okay, so that you already know. So I can ask you the question, what are you doing about it? You see, because you are in control of that. That's all for you to heal and to sort of change. You're aware of it, and that's already beauty in its own. So well done for acknowledging it and being so brave to say, guys, I'm having this challenge and this is who I am and I want to change it. That's already having this brave me step forward. Okay. Taking ownership of it is the next step. So what am I doing to shift it?
Yeah, I hear you. Thank you very much, Adri.
Pleasure. Okay, who posted there? Okay, so Paulina's. Okay, she says, yeah, one has a lot to do and much to review. Cute, shame, sweet. Okay. No other questions? Nothing. Cute.
Okay, guys. Then I'm gonna let us love and leave each other and enjoy the week, and we'll see you next week. If all goes well, then I'll be having Willem Goos speak to us, and he is an entrepreneur, so dealing with entrepreneurship, businesses, that sort of thing within this time. And just, yeah, it'll be a good one. I think he's quite a well-known speaker as well, so hopefully we see you next week as well.
No, you'll see me definitely.
Cool. Okay.
And thank you guys for listening to me from all out.
Thank you, Candace.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao. Bye. Have a good week. Bye.
You too. Thanks, Adri.